Good evening, YouTube. What a marvelous day this has been. It has just been so exhilarating. I just picked up so much energy today. It was just so thrilling to be alive. I It started out like 55 degrees this morning, nice and cool, clear skies. I was able to get out and run 2 miles and then come back and just continue to exercise for a good long time and never get overheated. Work outside. Be outside with the flowers and the trees and just enjoy it. And along in the afternoon before it got hardly any amount above 70 degrees, well, then we had some rain, cool air come in. And we didn't actually get the rain, but we had the rain, cool air that kept it from getting hot and just had a nice, cool breeze that made everything just wonderful. And hopefully the rain will come tomorrow and will refresh things, and that will be marvelous. It's so warm that it won't bother me from running if it is raining a little bit, and so that won't it's not going to inconvenience me, and it'll also refresh all the flowers and the trees and make the spring even more marvelous if it can get any better. This has been the best spring. Oh, it's just been marvelous, and I am just so full of awareness and so full of the many wonderful things that are going on, to what unlimited mind is doing, and what infinite mind is teaching us, and the many marvelous programs that are on YouTube that are raising consciousness and lifting our awareness and helping us to see more abundance and prosperity. And this is a time definitely to lift your awareness and your consciousness to see that prosperity and abundance is overflowing, and it's going to be coming more and more rapidly as the years go by. This 21st century is going to be by far the most prosperous century that we have ever seen. It could not even have been imagined a few years ago. And we can't even imagine the things that are coming until we begin to lift our consciousness and our awareness. It's to think about it, to how some people will just give up and say that there's no hope for either their country or the world, that it's time to just give up and feel like that the end is coming. That is just totally opposite from what we really need to be doing right now. We need to be lifting our awareness so that we can understand what is really happening. The only reason why people are thinking that things are bad or things are coming to an end is because they don't really understand what's going on. But we are actually, as a collective people on Earth, are raising our awareness at breakneck speed. It's raising our awareness and consciousness across the globe is being raised at a geometric level. Internet and the internet and communication is partly responsible for that, but there's just a general evolving of the humans and a general lifting of their awareness to the marvelous and magnificent fact is that God, our source, unlimited mind, is infinitely prosperous and infinitely abundant, and is drawing us to become aware of that. And the infinite abundance of divine mind, God, our infinite source, only awaits for us to lift our awareness to how much true abundance and prosperity really exists in the universe, and it exists in the mind which we are one with. We are one with infinite mind. We're coexistent with God. We're coexistent with infinite with our source. Our source is inextricably interwoven with us, and he only awaits our awareness of that fact to pour out all kinds of tremendous blessings upon us and upon the world. But the world has to come to that point in evolvement of consciousness to begin to make way for all of this prosperity and everything to pour in. So as we are beginning to do that, as we see and we look across the face of the world today and see the rapid pace at which people are raising their consciousness and becoming and developing more love for one another and developing a greater communication and generally talking about raising awareness. You have across the world today, you have all so much more talk about awareness raising and consciousness raising and lifting ourselves to a higher level. Whether we're talking about ascension, some people talk about ascension. Some use the word transcendence, and some use the word or talk about. They get into meditation and begin to realize their oneness with infinite mind like that. And there's so many avenues like that people are taking that is just mushrooming. And so as we see this happening, we know that this general awareness and lifting of consciousness is going to cause it to be much easier for us to deal with all of our differences, and it's going to cause us to be able to transcend the problems that we have getting along with one another. And as we see all of those kinds of things coming together, and we see our communicate our the growth in our communication, allowing us to communicate with people around the world. We see people learning the languages of other countries and communicating with people in other countries and getting together in every form and fashion and becoming talking more about love and peace and happiness and that type of thing. Then we know that by that standard and by that this kind of thing happening, that we're making way for great abundance and prosperity. Because the thing that has kept us up to this point from having a general worldwide prosperity and abundance is all these differences and this our consciousness being at a lower level and people not raising their awareness to understand how infinite God is and how loving God is, and not being able to see past their limited means and their own limited world, not being able to see past their own race, not being able to see past their own country or their own little region or their own little village. They were all tied up in their own little community, and now we see people begin to rise, let their awareness rise to look across the whole world and begin to understand people across the world and begin to raise their consciousness to realize how great God is and how prosperous and abundant He is. And so, as all of that happened is happening now much faster and at a much more geometric speed than what it has ever happened before. I mean, just so much more. Even just in the last 10 years, the growth in consciousness has just been rising at geometric speed. And so there's nothing else that can possibly happen but more prosperity and abundance coming from that. Because, as I say, all that God is, all that is preventing our abundance and prosperity is lifting our awareness, and lifting our collective awareness will just double and triple that amount of prosperity that the world sees. And so, what we need to do then, instead of giving up on our country or our world and saying, well, things are getting so bad and there's so much corruption and there's so much dishonesty and there's so much political instability and political problems and people not being able to get along with one another in politics, and so therefore we need to just give up on the government, give up on the world, give up on people, and just hope that the end is coming. Just to hope that a great explosion or something happens and that the end of the world will come, and then a new world will come along and take its place. That'll be far better, and so then we just give up like that, and we say, well. Because it's all because we don't understand what's really happening. We just say, because I don't understand it, and I'm not willing to take the time to lift my consciousness and my awareness to understand what's happening, then I'm just going to give up and just say, well, I just don't see no hope. I mean, I just don't see. All I see is just a fear and ignorance and superstition, and I don't see any hope for the world. But that's exactly the opposite. It's so far opposite. because we are coming into a great time of prosperity and abundance. And the next 50 years, you won't believe the difference in the world in 50 years in its prosperity and abundance. And by the time we get into the 22nd century, it's just going to be marvelous beyond belief. It's going to be the standard of living will be 10 times higher across the whole face of the globe by the time you get into the next couple of centuries. It's just going to rise at geometric speed, all because of the rising of the increase in communication and increase in the. It's just making distances disappear. And it's making differences between the races and the difference between the ethnic groups and differences between the language. Even the languages are just disappearing. The differences because of the ability to translate on the internet and the computerization of all the languages, and where you can just instantaneously, translate from one language to the other by means of the computer and by means of the internet. It's just all disappearing. All the differences are disappearing, and all the everyone's consciousness is rising, and they're all becoming to understand that love is the answer, and they're all becoming to understand that the mind has infinite potential to grow, and that awareness has infinite potential to grow. See, before we didn't realize that we thought our mind could only go to a certain level, and then it stopped. That our awareness would only reach a certain level, and then it stops. But now we realize that our awareness throughout eternity is going to just continue if we're going to be able to. If we say, for instance, we're marking it by years, which will become useless in eternity. Of course, there won't be any years of time. But if we're going to mark it by years, then every year that goes by, our awareness is going to increase a little bit more. Then you think about what's going to happen in a few hundred years, a few thousand years. Our awareness is just going to continue to rise, and our consciousness is just going to continue to grow. And with every little bit of increased consciousness and awareness, prosperity and abundance is going to increase. Because part of what happens in our raising our consciousness is we no longer feel threatened by what somebody else has. And we don't feel like that anybody else is going to take away from our abundance, because we realize how infinite abundance really is and how infinite prosperity it is. So we overcome all fear, and we overcome all feeling of being threatened. We overcome all feeling of being isolated. We overcome all feeling of having to latch on to something or to take something from someone else. And so as all of that begins to happen, that makes way for a time of great prosperity and great abundance, a wondrous time. And as we begin to look at that, then we realize that we have great hope for the future, and we have an extremely great reason for being happy and exhilarated and thankful. And so what we need to do now is to begin to be thankful and to begin to rejoice about all of this raising of consciousness. And we need to get with the program and become leaders in raising the consciousness across the world even more. Leaders in spreading love even more across the world. And we need to realize our leadership ability and our ability to begin to disseminate this awareness more. Even though it's already being disseminated quite a bit, we can join with it and begin to be leaders in a movement to disseminate more and more awareness and more consciousness, to begin to cause people to put out there the call for people to raise their awareness, and to create a desire in people's hearts to raise their awareness, and begin to just generally provide a light to the world of what it means to raise our awareness. And as we do that, we're adding to our own prosperity and abundance, and we're adding to the world's prosperity and abundance. The more we lead out in bringing these truths out and disseminating them out to the world, the more we're increasing the worldwide abundance, and in the process, we're increasing our own abundance and our own ability to have more prosperity. And so, think about and meditate upon these things, and you'll be able to manifest anything you want to manifest, and you'll be able to have be able to overcome all depression and have happiness in generally in your life. So have a very good evening this evening.